Well, hello, 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 hello. Y'all come on into the room. We got Teresa here. We got Melissa. Hello. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? What we looking at here? There we go. All right. How y'all doing out there? We got, y'all coming on in here. Melissa, you look excited, Melissa. Melissa is like, girl, I am in here, girl. I've been waiting on this all day today. You
Hey,
got your
Melissa.
pen and paper, Melissa? You ready to take notes and things?
I told Jerry I had all my materials ready.
Yes. Hallelujah
Pen, paper,
materials. Come
Yeah.
on.
stopwatch.
Thank
Look
you
at
so
running
much for
shoes.
this. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for attending. We are super excited to have y'all here. We're going to give everybody a few more minutes to make their way in. And we're going to get started probably in about 2 or 3 more minutes. We'll go ahead and get started. Y'all falling on in here.
Oh,
Let me
we got a
tell
full
you.
room.
Let me tell you. Hey, what's that? Buddha. Hey, Buddha. Hey, Jeannie. Kevin, Leslie. Yes, Tess. Hey, Tess, how are you?
Doing well, so excited.
Yes, we are excited as well. Everybody is coming on in. I'm going to give y'all a few more minutes. Yes. Hi, Carlene. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Demetrius, I knew I missed the name. I saw your name, Demetrius, and I said, "Oh, don't forget to say that name." And then I forgot to say that name.
It was like that. It was like that.
That's how it happens from time to time. That's how it happens from time to time. All right. Kevin says, "Hi everyone." Yes, Kevin has found. Listen, I was going over, how we were going to make this happen tonight and what we needed to do to make this happen tonight. And I said, okay, we're going to have to go over all of the how to use the controls, the chat room controls and all of that good stuff. And then I thought about it and I said, well, we've probably been using Zoom so much over the last 10 weeks or so. Y'all probably could teach me a few things about the back room controls
Still
and how
can.
to make things happen. So we still gonna go over it though,
I just want to see these reaction buttons. I just want to see these reaction buttons come through.
just for good measure. You're a little low, Jerry. I can't quite hear you. You
Am I
turn your
still low?
volume up a little bit. Try it again.
Am I still low?
Yeah, you're on. You're still a little low. I'm not hearing you as well as I did a few minutes ago.
I'm guessing this sounds completely different.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Loud and clear, sir. Loud and clear. That's not a good thing, it looks like. But that's okay because you are the guru here. So you are the one
I
that's
am. I'm going to be able to, apothecary heal thyself.
yes,
As my
yes.
good
I love
friend Bill
it.
Shakespeare used to say. So I should be coming through loud and clear now. Yeah.
You and Bill good friends? I didn't know y'all was good friends.
You know what I'm saying? I got a lot of connections. You know what I'm saying?
You got people in high places.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Stephanie. Stephanie says, "Happy Wednesday, everyone. I bring you greetings from Harlem, New York City."
What's
Hey.
going on, y'all?
Come on, Harlem. How you doing?
Good.
Leslie says, "Hi, everyone. Greetings from Leslie of A Different 50 Podcast." Okay,
Yes.
Leslie.
What's going
Yes, a
on,
little
Leslie?
wave for the people, Leslie. I see
Yes.
you, girl.
Announce
I
yourself.
see you, Leslie. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We still have more people that are going to be coming in, but we definitely want to be respectful of everybody's time. And we want to make sure that we give Jerry all of the time that he needs to be able to hit us with all of the information, the little nuggets and all of that good stuff that he's going to be hitting us with tonight. I'm super excited for this. My name is Latrice Sampson Richards. I am a mental and emotional wellness creative, a licensed professional counselor, and a certified life enhancement coach. I teach Black women the skills that we need in order to heal and manifest. And I do that by sharing my journey in hopes that it'll help you along your own. And I'm the host of Unicorns Talk podcast. And I am super duper like super duper duper excited to be here tonight for the inaugural event,
Yes.
the inaugural installation of the Afros in Audio virtual creative podcast kickback, sponsored by ACAST. And so we are eternally grateful to each and every one of you who registered. We are founded on the premise of creating community and unity within the Black podcasting community. And we want to make sure that we are showing up for ourselves and for each other the way that we really need to. And so we put this virtual series together because of the COVID. You know, it's real out here in these COVID streets.
Yeah.
COVID had us kind of flip our whole world upside down. And so we had to, as creatives, get even more creative about how we were going to get this information out to you and continue to build our audience and continue to create safe spaces for Black creatives, specifically Black podcasters, but Black creatives of all kinds. And so I'm really happy and excited to be a part of the Afros in Audio team. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to introduce our presenter for the evening. He is, I use the word awesome a lot. One of my friends sent me a meme or something, and it was like saying like, awesome is like the most overused word in the English language or something. And I was like, don't attack me. Like, don't do me that. Because sometimes awesome is the word, you know, like awesome is just the word that you use. So Jerry is a awesome and amazing person, and he's going to be presenting the podcast launch formula tonight, his podcast launch formula, all right, tonight. And so Jerry, I'm going to be managing all of the back end. Before I go ahead and completely turn everything over to Jerry, I do want to just kind of go over a few ground rules. Everybody is going to be on mute, and you will not be able to unmute yourself until we open up for questions and answers, okay? And so once we open up for questions and answers, I ask that you raise your hand. I'm gonna go over this again, but I ask that you hit the little buttons. If you scroll down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little menu that says reactions. And with that menu, you can give Jerry a thumbs up or you can give him a hand clap. We also going to use that if you have a question during the question and answer time period as well, okay? And just a little nugget in case you didn't know that you could do this, that this was a thing Zoom could do. You know how on the cell phone you could change the color of your thumbs up emoji to make it match your skin color? You can do that in Zoom as well. And so that's a really cool little feature that we have. We want to make sure that we're using the chat box. You can also post your comments or any amen, hallelujahs, Lord, that's the information I needed. Whatever it is that you want to post, whatever it is you want to communicate to us, any questions that you might want to ask, you can post those questions in the chat box as well. And if you have any questions that maybe you don't want everyone to know that you're asking, which why would you not? I mean, you know, this is a safe space. But if you would like, you can send me a private message. You're going to go to the chat area down at the bottom, and you're going to click on where it says to everyone, where you can select a specific person from that list to send a message directly to that person. My name again. Well, actually, they have me under Talib Fleming. I need to change that, Talib. I didn't even notice that because that is not my name. You know. There we go. So my name is Latrice Richards, and you can find me in there. And if you don't want to post for everyone to see, you can go ahead and make that post right there. Okay. All right. So Stephanie says that she would like to check out everybody's podcast. I think that's an amazing thing as well. So if y'all want to go ahead and drop the name of your podcast in the chat box, we will maybe do a shout out a little shout out later on in the evening. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Jerry the Third. Give me 1 second, Jerry.
Okay. You can still hear me okay, right?
I can still hear you. Give me 1 second.
Fantastic. That's kind of like podcast step number 1.
Yeah.
Make sure the mic works.
Yes. Yes.
Step
All
number 2
right.
is to
So
make sure
what
you hit record.
yeah, hold on one second.
Hmm.
All right, Jerry, you are good to go.
Fantastic. What's going on, everybody? I'm going to share my screen quickly and we're going to get to it. Everybody can see that? Give me a thumbs up or put a reaction out there. Fantastic. Well, my name is Jerry the Third. I will introduce myself in a little bit more depth later, but welcome to the podcast launch formula, shortened here for the sake of aesthetic to the pod launch formula. Super excited to share this information with you all. And I see some people have podcasts already. That's fantastic, but I'm guessing a lot of you don't. And this is really going to give you the step-by-step process to creating your own show. And I've added in for the launch impact, how to actually launch your show so that you get some people listening to it. Super excited to share this, and I hope you really take this to task. You will have homework, so watch out for that.
Ooh.
So tonight's agenda, we're going to talk about all these different aspects. And thank you so much, Latrice, for mentioning that we do have the chat feature. I'm going to take small pauses in between each of these topics to see if we have any questions, if I can add some more clarity. But other than that, it's going to be a lot of information in a short amount of time, but it's definitely going to be worth it. So we're definitely going to talk about why podcasting is so attractive, cover some podcast basics. We won't be able to get into every single detail, but the main thing that I want to share with you today is what I call the podcasting roadmap. These are the 5 steps that you need to, that I suggest, you don't need to do anything, but I suggest that you consider these whenever you're launching every single episode. And this is really going to lead you to the path of success from your first week's podcasting to the first few years podcasting in. We're going to talk about equipment because everybody has questions about that. I'm going to make it very, very simple for you and easy to understand. And then we're going to talk about the launch formula. So the way I run my workshops is no question is too small or too simple. I've done a lot of teaching about getting people into podcasting. So I feel like I've heard them all, but you know what? You might surprise me and I would be delighted as well to hear your questions. Also, I'll be looking for feedback from y'all. So I can't see the chat, but if you like something that you hear, if you want to hit that thumbs up on the reaction button or hand clap or give me a thumbs up, like I'm here for it. I could use all the positive energy, especially for this. So I should introduce myself. My name is Jerry the Third. I am based in Dallas, Texas, originally from outside of Philadelphia, Media, PA. A little bit about me. I used to live in Paris, France. If you've ever been so fed up with work that you thought you might want to buy a one-way ticket and just live abroad for a period of time, hi, I'm Jerry the Third. I did that. It was a life-changing experience. And I've been podcasting since 2018 as a host and producer of my own podcast show. And it's mostly about my travels and what I learned there. In addition to that, when it comes to teaching and educating, I was asked by Airbnb to help launch their online experiences. Airbnb used to have an experience portal where you could meet up with tourists and stuff. And during COVID, they decided to pivot to being online. So I was given the opportunity to be one of the first 50 people on the platform. And through that, I've been able to not only teach hundreds of people, but we've earned over 100 5-star reviews. So that's pretty encouraging. Been through this a lot. And then outside of that, I'm a speaker and workshop leader, just like I am now. So I talk about men of color at the intersection between travel and growth, and also podcasting with purpose. And I'm going to be impressing upon you today to create shows with intent. And if you already have a show, refine that intention so we can actually do good in the world with these platforms. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, I see some heads nodding yes. Okay, everyone can still hear me, right? Let's jam. So I want to welcome you to Point Noir. This is my podcast platform, my baby. We started in 2018 from my cell phone. So if you've ever thought equipment or skill or ability was a barrier to getting into the podcast game, it's not. Literally, I still record into my cell phone. I'll tell you specifically how I do that. But I had an idea, I had an ambition, and I created the show with no experience, no platform, started from zero. And to date, we've recorded the stories of over 80 men of color. We're heard all over the world. And one of the things that I do to impact my community is I sponsor passports for men of color. We've been able to sponsor 20 men of color to get their passports. Some of them have even been able to travel and then come back on the show and be featured as guests. So not only is podcasting an amazing marketing tool, an amazing branding tool, an amazing means for communication, but we can actually do a lot of good. And I think now more than ever, we're kind of heightened to the idea that we need more diverse voices. And especially when it comes to communities of color, a lot of times we haven't had access to platforms. You can literally get on, get people engaged, and help people out by creating a podcast show. And I'm going to walk you through those steps now. So let's start with a couple of basics. Why is podcasting so interesting? There's been so much news over the past couple years about why the space is lighting up with ad money, with people like Joe Rogan getting signed for multi-$100 million deals to be bought by Spotify. So what's the big hype? What's going on here? Well, first and foremost, if you didn't know, podcasting is #1 for audience retention and consumption. There is no digital media platform that has longer engagement, as we call it, than podcasting. The average person listens to a podcast for 30 minutes, and about 93% of people complete an entire episode. So my little podcast where I'm just talking to people from around the world for an hour and a half, people will listen for an hour and a half. So if you think that, hey, who's going to listen to my voice, or why would anybody care? It's important. People who find podcasts love to listen. It's a relatively new content format when you think about blogging, creating your own website, or being on YouTube, because there are only about 1 million podcasts and even less active podcasts that are currently active, whereas there are 30 million YouTube channels you're competing against. There's over 500 million blogs. So if you're looking to get some greenfield opportunity in a new content space, podcasting is awesome. It also gives you the ability not only to build authority in a space very quickly, but also to grow your network. Imagine if you could have who's who of your personal network to advance you professionally or personally. You get the opportunity to do that by inviting people onto your show. By creating my platform where I interview men of color to see how they've transformed through travel, not only have I quickly been able to show myself as an authority because I'm doing the work, but now I'm on first name basis and cell phone connection with all these different guys. We put together some amazing projects and products together. So that's the opportunity you have by starting your own show. And of course, it's monetizable, but I'll share my thoughts on that a little bit later. Some other advantages that we have with podcasting are the intimacy of the human voice. People ask, well, why does podcasting have so much increased purchasing power and people place ads on them? Why do people care about podcast shows so much? It's because we're leveraging the human voice. This is one of the most intimate and familiar sounds to us. You can even hear a mother's voice through the womb. It's one of the things that we first know when we come into the world. So why not leverage that? When you are communicating to your audience, and I'll share this later, the only connection they have to you is your voice and what comes through on the microphone. Everything else lights up different parts of their imagination. They have to pretend to visualize the things you're talking about. They have to conceptualize. Even if you're talking about tastes and smells, it activates the imagination and it builds a very unique bond between the host and the audience. It also engages what I like to call the gray audience, which is really, really interesting. So a gray audience is an audience of people that we're not able to reach through traditional media formats. So that could be people that aren't watching YouTube. How about people who might be severely dyslexic or have difficulties reading? These are the people looking to podcasts, not only to educate themselves, but to entertain themselves. So why not capture this audience? Because once they feel that you recognize them, they become fans and they want to follow you everywhere you go. Believe it or not, I have people who feel like they know me personally because they listen to my show. Other thing that I love about podcasting, and these last two are a little bit less technical, but more my personal philosophy, is it allows the space for nuance and authentic expression. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm on social media, I find conversations to be very two-dimensional. He said this, she said that, they said this, and it's very reactive, very yes, no. Everything is very black and white. But when we're podcasting, we actually get to experience this beautiful thing called conversation in nuance, because as we know from our experiences, not everything is clearly black and white. A lot of times it's, again, shades of gray. So why not talk about this? Why not use this to foster positive engagements and discussions that ultimately leave us with the ability to walk away learning something, or at least having some appreciation for somebody else? And it's permissionless. I mentioned a lot of times people of color haven't had access to platforms. We didn't have the ability to even be on radio or TV for a long period of time. Why not start your own radio broadcasting station that can be as convenient as your cell phone? All this being said, all of this awesome stuff that comes from podcasting, here's how I feel about it. Without quality, there's no sustained impact. In my mind, it seems almost like a shame, or just, a little bit sad that you could put all this effort in creating a platform, but you don't have any impact. You're trying to leverage all the advantages that podcasting can give you, but you don't have a quality show. So most of this is going to be focused on how can we build a quality show, and then we'll get to the launch, and then we'll get to the technical stuff. But I really want you to imagine that you can potentially have an impact in someone's life. When I started my show, I just wanted one person to believe that there was something out in the world out there for them to go and travel and then come back and tell somebody about. And without me creating my show, literally, there are people I know on a first name basis who would never have traveled the world if they hadn't been inspired by the content, if they hadn't seen my story. Because before I traveled out, took my one-way ticket to Paris, France, I never saw my own likeness reflected. So I was able to bring that experience back to my community and uplift them. This doesn't mean everything you have to do has to be very kumbaya or very, heart-centered work, but you always want to think about what value am I offering people? And when you focus on that, I believe all the other great things beyond podcasting will come. All right, let's get into some basics. But first, Latrice, do we have any questions? I can see the chat, but it's kind of blocked. Any questions or anything so far?
No, I'm not seeing any questions just yet. Just
Okay.
another reminder, go ahead and utilize that chat box. You all can communicate with Jerry as he is communicating with us, and it always makes things a lot better. Y'all know how to watch TV together. Y'all know we be on the Twitters and things watching TV together. Let's make it happen.
Fantastic. I promise you in 10 minutes, y'all be like, I wish I'd asked a question back then, but I got you. Give it time, let you warm up. So let's talk about some podcast basics. There's a lot of details here. And I'll say for starters, there is no one way to do a podcast successfully. A lot of being successful with podcasting and in general is kind of knowing what works for you. But I'm going to give you an outline of some options and ways to go. So for starters, we need a great podcast idea. And this is something that can build and be refined over time. I've definitely, and I'm still in the process of refining my podcast vision, but I'm pretty clear about it. We equip men of color to shift their paradigms through travel. That's what I do. So how can you find your great podcast idea? Because I know you have one. One way to think about it is, what do you enjoy? I'm always telling my students and clients to lean into the things that they are passionate about and that energize them. Sometimes we kind of get in this space where we feel like we need to copy somebody else's show or do a next version of something that already exists, but you have enough passions and interests within you, even if you don't think they're popular, to share that with the world. There are podcasts out there about Dungeons and Dragons, being a professional turkey hunter, scrapbooking, all Jeep collectors. Like, there are podcasts out there about everything. So contribute your voice in just because you're active and passionate about it. You're going to need that energy to sustain the consistent effort to have success with the show. Other thing to consider is, what do you know? Now, this is a really tricky one I find with people who especially have a lot of experience in their field. Because sometimes I remember what it was like to show up to a job every day. Sometimes you're around your colleagues all the time and you feel like, I don't really know anything. Like, I'm not the best at this. I'm not an expert at that, because you can see person XYZ in your line of vision. But take a couple steps back and remember that you probably have information that 90% of the world doesn't have access to. So share that knowledge with them. Not only will they appreciate the opportunity to learn something, but they'll probably appreciate the way that you express your ideas. Because just because you're an expert at something doesn't mean you're good at teaching it to every sort of person. Again, opening up that doorway for diversity to have people find your show and want to stay fans. Last thing is there anything you'd like to learn? I'm positive, like 100%, quote me on this, hold me accountable, Latrice. I'm positive at some point I will start a podcast about a topic I know nothing about, and it will just be sharing my journey of learning. Now, that might sound silly. You might wonder, well, who's going to be a guest for my show, or how am I going to teach people when I'm still learning myself? But that's the whole point. It's being vulnerable. It's being accessible, because while you are unique and an awesome person, which I fully believe, we don't all have original things that we want to accomplish in life. So a bunch of people might want to learn Russian. Let's say I start a podcast about that. Well, they'll enjoy my learning experience. And one of the ways I know this is true is I taught myself French mainly through podcasts. And I will never forget the topic of the shows or the name of the show. And that was 6 years ago. So bringing people along for your learning journey is immensely powerful. Ultimately, people will show up to listen to your show for 3 reasons, and I call them the 3 E's. So if you have pen and paper, you might want to write these down because they are not on the slide. Your 3 E's are: your show needs to be educational, entertaining, or encouraging. Almost all media that we consume falls in those 3 categories. I'd say 98% of it. So your show needs to be presenting this information in that way. If your show is either entertaining, educational, or encouraging, people will keep showing up. And it's okay if your show is a mix of a few of them. My platform is a little bit entertaining, but it's mostly encouraging. It's inspiring people to see more, to travel by sharing these stories. And we do a little bit of education. But once you mix your podcast idea with kind of the format, again, those 3 E's, then you're going to come up with the foundations of a great show concept. And ultimately, you want to bullet it down to this statement right here at the bottom. Let me grab my magic pointer. He'll be joining us for this journey. If you can fill in these blanks, you're good to go. I help who to what by how. So for instance, my podcast, I help men of color to be fearless when traveling by sharing travel stories. Just a quick example right there. And you would be surprised, y'all, how many people may have podcasts already that have never considered this. They have never summed down what their show is about in just one sentence. If you can be that clear on your new podcast concept, I promise you your audience will be able to be attracted to your content and they will spread the word. So I'll say it one more time. Sometimes in marketing, we say, I help X to do Y by Z, but I help who to do what by how. Might want to write that down. All right, so let's get to some more pod fundamentals. So if you asked me, Jerry, I want to start a podcast show. How long should it be? How often should I release the show? What should we talk about? We've already covered the topic, but for the more technical details, let's talk about this slide a little bit right here. In general, seasons are a great way to publish your first podcast. My show is still in a season. It's just a very, very, very long season, but it's the same way that things work on, HBO or Netflix or on television as we're used to it. You'll do a run for a set number of weeks, then you'll take a break and revisit your podcast. I definitely recommend to start your show in seasons if you can. Most people go that direction anyway. 8 to 10 shows will do. In terms of release, which is how frequently you should launch your show, weekly or bi-weekly in that season is perfect. We'll give you enough time to have experience with podcasting and build momentum for your platform. And this, of course, depends on what your show is about. Now, if you're doing something where it's you talking for 5 minutes on a microphone, you might be able to publish 3 of those in a week. But if you're doing hour-long, 2-hour-long interviews like I am, you're going to want that whole week just to edit. So give yourself some space and grace and don't overwhelm things early on. I will say that most shows do have interviews, and having an interview for your podcast gives you a lot of benefits, but it's by no means a requirement. It can just be you on the microphone sharing your thoughts and passion. It could be you and a group of friends, whatever works for your situation and again, energizes you. I don't want you to feel like you got to get you and your 3 friends and force them into a room and then do some recording and do it every week, because that's not going to be a great experience for you. In terms of length, the average show in the podcasting world is about 43 minutes. Again, this depends on content, but with an interview, that makes perfect sense. It's going to take a half hour, 40 minutes to open somebody up and to add value. But if you're just doing tips and tricks, 5-10 minutes is totally okay. But on average, it's 43. Ultimately, I suggest starting simple and getting complex later on. I don't know if anybody has questions about starting a video podcast or a vodcast, as it's called, but I will not be sharing anything about that today. Sometimes we see examples that are out there, such as Joe Rogan or The Read or, any of these other shows, and we see all these complex microphones and equipment, and we forget that they have full teams that are fully paid for to do all of this work. Joe Rogan has a team of 4 full-time people to launch his show. So if it's just you doing it on your own, get your first season through, get through your first 8 episodes, and then build from there. Now, to make this super claro, I've listed some pod killers. I'm going to talk to y'all like your family, because Afros and Audio, I appreciate them so much, and this is community-centered. I'm excited to be here, so I'm going to talk to y'all like we chill at the cookout together. First thing that kills most podcasts is lack of a clear show focus. That earlier formula I gave you, I help blank to do blank by blank, is essential. And especially it seems like in our community where we have a lot of interest in our culture, there's a lot to talk about. Our culture is dope, but we see something like The Breakfast Club or The Read and say, oh, how hard could it be to get 3 or 4 people on a microphone to talk about Lizzo's latest album? Well, it's actually pretty damn hard. We don't really assess the talent or the clarity or the focus that might be behind these deceptively simple concepts. My show sounds pretty darn good, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So without that focus, you're going to be lost. And I've seen more of my podcast friends who've dropped out of the game due to lacking focus more than anything else. Second thing that kills podcasts is complexity. It's trying to do video. It's trying to do multiple recordings with guests all around the world at the same time. It's trying to have too much marketing material and not enough good content. Complexity kills people, shoots them right out the gate. And then lastly, I'd say too much focus on monetization. Because of the recent headlines involving money and big dollar figures, people are flocking. Trust me, I feel like podcasts are going to be as common as blogs are in about 10 years. So marketing companies, businesses, entrepreneurs are trying to get in on this podcast money game. I'm telling you from my experience, if you focus on the impact, the money will follow. It might take a little bit longer than you thought or would like, but I wouldn't make podcasting your nest egg idea unless you already have success with a previous platform, already have a team together and ready to invest some money on day one. So this is going to be the simple 101 version of getting this done. But hey, if you have all those things in place, more power to you. Last but not least is accountability. So find somebody to keep you honest about what's going on in your process. If you're missing show releases until your audience grows, you might need your mom or, a best friend to be like, yo, did you release your podcast today? You got to give yourself that time to structure things and be consistent with your efforts. And as your show grows, eventually your audience will keep you accountable. So you kind of choose which one's more comfortable for you. I haven't produced a show in 3 weeks due to my headspace over these past, weeks. And I owe my audience an apology. Already thinking about it. Cool. So any questions so far? Is everything I'm saying making sense, sounding clear? Feeling good? Y'all learning some things so far? Okay, I see some heads nodding. Patrice gave me a thumbs up. Okay. So let's get into this podcast process roadmap. And y'all, I appreciate everyone. I can see through your cameras. I'm, making good eye contact, but y'all looking good. Y'all glowing. I like this. Y'all got good lighting.
I see Michael. Michael got his pen and paper. Michael got that head down. Michael said, I'm taking notes. I ain't got time for questions right now. I'll ask the questions later. Look his notes. Listen, if you're taking notes, go ahead and show us your notes. Put your notes in the camera so we could see your notes.
Love to see
y'all
it.
not playing. Y'all did not come to play this evening. Y'all knew Michael was about to give you the good. And so you said you was coming prepared. So we want to make sure that we keep our questions in mind. And whenever you pull up your head from that paper, go on and type those questions in the chat box or raise your hand and we'll make sure we get those questions. But I always say, Jerry, no questions is a good thing because that means that you're doing such a good job. They got it. They don't need no follow-up, but yeah, you are doing an amazing job.
Cool. Appreciate that encouragement. Let's keep it moving. So this is the podcast process roadmap. So before I even share step 1 with you, I'm going to tell you the dirty secret about content creation. Because y'all, this ain't my first rodeo trying to create something to make something pop on the internet. I've built blogs. I've started YouTube channels. I've built websites. I've done all kinds of things. And at the end of the day, these are activities where you need to have a little bit of skill in a lot of areas. They like to say, jack of all trades, master of none. That's the thing that people don't tell you about. You see a host on a podcast show and you don't realize that, whoa, they're also really good with connecting with people and they understand social media. Anytime you see an indie podcaster getting your attention, applaud them because they're trying to master all these different areas. But the part that's really good about it being multidisciplinary, if I were to put in a word, is that you already have skills and experience that line up with every step in the process. Let's jump into it. This is the podcast process. Now, anybody that has a podcast, if you had an amen to send up, put in the chat, I think this is pretty much the bare bones of what it takes to produce every show. You need to schedule either for yourself or for your guest. You need to do some recording. You're going to edit. You're going to publish your show. Now at step 4, your show is already live and listenable on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, and we'll talk about that process. But then step number 5 is where I find most podcasters, specifically indie podcasters, lack a little bit, and that's in the promotion stuff. So that's going to be a lot of social media engagement, digital engagement, finding creative ways to get people interested in your show. But hey, if you're a really organized person, you got it on scheduling. In fact, if you do some part-time work, let me know because I'm terrible at scheduling. Somehow I've survived 2 years. If you have a musical ear, you might be fantastic at editing. If you really understand social media engagement, promoting is going to be good for you. So we're going to break these down step by step, keep it brief, and we'll keep it moving. So the way I have all of these slides set up is right here at the top. You can see I have our topic, what we're talking about, but right here in this obnoxious green box is a free tool that you can go use today, right now, after this workshop, to go put this in place. Because I don't want to just share information with you. I'm not really a teacher in the way that most people think of it. I'm here to empower you. I want you to have all the tools and all the resources. And on the back end of that, I'm also taking excuses out of the way for why we don't want to get this done. Because I believe you all showed up here for a reason and have something to share, some impact to deliver to the world. So step number one, I want you to schedule or make some space. Now this seems really obvious if you have guests. If you want somebody else to appear as a guest on your show, y'all gonna need to show up in some sort of space together to do the recording. And sometimes even that simple part misses people. So using an app like this right here, Calendly, is super effective. What you're able to do is put your hours or times of availability, you send it to your guest, they pick what works for them, and then y'all meet at that same point in time. This could be on an app, this could be in person, but Calendly makes that very, very simple. I literally do this from my phone every week. Now, this is really key when you have guests, is to anticipate reschedules. So what I tell for all of my students, clients, I tell them to schedule 2 guests for every 1 person they plan to record and publish. Because what happens? Inevitably, somebody's kid gets sick, somebody's laptop just got thrown out the car window, somebody forgot, things happen, and you wanna make sure that you're showing up consistently for your audience. So always schedule 2 guests to record. If one of them, something unfortunate happens and they can't make it, then you have 1 in the pocket. And if both of them show up, well, now you have something pre-recorded that you can use for a future date. That's everything for your guests and scheduling. The most important part I wanna hone in on here is you need to schedule time for you. Now, this could show up in a variety of ways, but ultimately, I believe that podcasting should be fun. It should be something that energizes you. One of the beauties of this is it gives people access. Let's say you don't want to do video or have your makeup done or lighting done all the time for YouTube, or let's say you're bad at writing like I am. This is a great place to share your voice, but you want to be energized for it. Don't make it seem like a chore. So I tell my students, like, find a pair of podcast socks. Maybe you want to light some incense, some sage, whatever, but get in your space. And you can see in my home studio here, I have my mat back here with Africa right here with the crown. I have my globe. I even chose this blue intentionally for my microphone and this jacket because I feel good when I'm presenting. So make sure that you feel good in your space. Maybe there's a little part of the house you can carve out. If your house is too quiet, tell them to be quiet for, like, if your house is too loud, I mean, see if you can negotiate to get your house quiet for an hour so you can have your space. Because again, the only connection, this very important connection that your audience has with you is everything through your voice on this microphone. And the human voice is very sensitive. You know how you can tell when something's wrong? When you pick up the phone sometimes and someone just says hello or says your name. It's the same thing with podcasting. So the better you feel, the more energized and up you feel, the more your audience is going to capture that energy and they're going to become addicted to it. It's going to be great. All right. That's my big soapbox for the whole presentation. Step number 2, we're just going to do some recording. We're going to capture some sounds. Again, this could be you alone. This could be you with a guest, but I want you to remember that your phone is good enough to start. I'm here to remove some barriers and empower you and encourage you that this is what works. My first 25 podcast episodes, this was my microphone. And these were my headphones. This is a pair of Apple earbuds that came with my iPhone in 2014. Same pair. This is what I used to record my show for the first 25 episodes. And you know what? The show grew. We got response. We sponsored passports. Why? Because the sound was good enough. I even have a couple episodes where we're literally recording straight into my phone, just sitting across the table from us, and it's good enough to go. Again, sometimes we look and listen to these shows that are really like multi-million-dollar productions. They have full staff, they have all the equipment, and we think, oh, I need to sound like NPR. This needs to sound like something Gimlet Media produced. That's not the case at all. You just need to make sure that there aren't obvious distractions during your recording and allow yourself to grow. I didn't start off with this microphone. I grew into it when it was time. The easiest way to have a high quality sound is to manage your recording environment. That hands down matters more than your equipment. In the same way that you would not record a podcast in the middle of a busy train station or the middle of a supermarket, you want to make sure that your podcast recording environment for you and your guest is what I call stable. So you want to watch out for these things called reflective surfaces. Those are concrete or stone walls or floors, high ceilings, large glass windows. quick test, and no one has to raise their hand here, but have you ever been on the phone with somebody and they were talking to you and you were like, wait a second, Larry, are you in the bathroom? You knew because I see a hand being raised over there. You can actually hear that because bathrooms are incredibly reflective rooms. You have the tile, you have the backsplash, maybe you have a glass sliding door for your shower, or you have a mirror, which is also made of glass. That allows our voice to bounce around and reverberate all over that space. And that's how you can tell someone's in the bathroom when they're talking to you on the phone. So let's reduce that. In fact, a lot of podcasters start podcasting in their closets. Closets are fantastic places to get high quality sound and make your relatively basic equipment shine. Closets are smaller spaces. They're generally carpeted and they have fabric in them in the form of your clothes to absorb sound. So it's actually a very great environment to get some really good recording. All right, so how do we do recordings? Well, if you're thinking I can't start my podcast because of COVID-19 and I can't have anybody in the shared space, I got you beat to the punch already. You can record amazingly through Zoom. All of you have successfully outed yourselves already because you logged on to this meeting. So if you can log into a Zoom account, you can record the recordings and the video if you want to, and use that for your podcast audio. Zoom is great. It's a free option. And then right here is a podcast platform called Anchor. It's a podcast host. I'll explain what that is in a bit, but this is a free way. As long as each person has the app, you can record for an hour, up to 4 people for free. For free. My first 20 shows, I did them all with Anchor. Hands down. So I just realized I had a typo for closets, but that's okay. The other thing is when you have guests recording, you want to manage their space as well. So if I listen to my guests on the phone or I'm talking to them through my headphones, I want to hear what different spaces of their house sound like. So they might have one of those fire alarms that needs a battery being changed and they just tuned out that noise. You know how that happens? That beep, beep. I can hear that on my microphone. I let them know. I'll be like, hey, James, is there any other place you can do this? Sometimes you have to manage your guests for you, but it's understandable. Position it in a way that you're trying to make them sound as best as possible, and it works 100% of the time. All right, step number 3, we're going to edit our show. Now, editing is merely the process of polishing up the recorded audio. Remember, already we've scheduled our guest, we've recorded, now we're at the editing stage. I want to tell you what editing does, and then I want to share a little bit some caveats about editing. So editing allows you to really polish up that audio, making very specific adjustments to your sound. Things I can do in editing, I can get rid of what we call dead space. Let's say I'm being interviewed on Latrice's show. She asked me a really great question and I'm thinking for a second so I can give some value in my answer. Well, I might spend 3 to 4 seconds thinking. Her audience shouldn't have to listen to me think. We want to value our listeners' time as well. So I would actually delete that space of sound in the audio file and make it sound like I responded pretty quickly after she answered me. Editing that way allows the conversation to sound a lot more natural and free-flowing. Other things we can do are get rid of flub words or filler words, such as like, you know, right. All of these little hitches we have in our speech sometimes that kind of make us cringe. Well, we don't want our audience to listen to those. And also by removing those, we make ourselves and our guest sound a lot more confident and clear with the message that they're sharing. Immensely useful. Other things we can do, we can add background music. We can normalize volume levels. We can add different effects and make things really, really cool. It's really very similar to video editing. But here are 2 things to remember about editing a podcast. 1, you don't have to do it. My first 20 shows, I did no editing. It worked because I had a quality show with really good content, but there are glitches and flubs and all sort of stuff through there. If you listen to one of my recent episodes versus one of my first 20, they sound way different. I would have benefited from some editing, but I wasn't able to incorporate it in this podcast roadmap at the time. Now I definitely do. Second caveat with editing is this can be affordably outsourced. People have the skill set and the ability to edit your show for you, and they do a great job at it. And when I say affordably, I'm talking in the $30 to maybe $40 range for a good editor for about a half-hour show. If you go somewhere like Fiverr.com, they might have something a little bit more affordable. Sometimes price definitely means higher quality, but there are even some local collectives. I know of a few. I know Afros and Audio has some options where they have people available to edit for you. So this is a great way to support the community, because I'll tell you, for one, for my show, I do not trust a person who's not of color to edit my show. It's been one of my biggest barriers to finding someone to edit my show because I'm capturing the largest volume of male travel stories for men of color. So I don't want anything to be clipped out because they didn't understand the culture. So you can reinvest in your platform and the impact that you have by finding community podcasting platforms such as Afros and Audio, especially up in New York, where they can do the work for you. If you want to do it yourself, I definitely recommend giving it a try. If you have a Mac, GarageBand is your go-to. And if you have a PC, I'd recommend Audacity. Audacity also works on Macs as well. So again, free resources to get you going. I use GarageBand to edit my podcast every single week. All right, we're on the home stretch now. In fact, right here, our podcast baby is birthed out into the world. We have the publishing factor. So there are two sides of this: hosting and your podcast players. So hosting works like this. iTunes is not going to jump down to your computer through the internet and say, hey, Jerry, did you record a new episode? Okay, let me grab that and bring it to my library. No, I need to make my show accessible somewhere on the internet. And that's what I have my podcast host to do. So I take my final edited file, I upload it to my host, and my host will send it to libraries like iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. In addition to that, my host will share data with me about my listeners. How many downloads did each show get? Where are my listeners located in the world? How do they identify for gender? Or what are their age ranges? A lot of useful data. And that is really, really useful. So if you wanted a host, I would suggest Anchor. That's who I've been using for the past 2 years. It's a free platform, 100% free, and it will definitely be a great way to get you started because their mobile capability is so powerful. I still publish my show from my cell phone every time we put out a new show. Seriously, I record straight into my phone still. And we've grown way beyond what I was doing in the first few months. Now, there are some paid options for podcast hosts. And if you don't have the coin or don't want to think about it, that's totally okay. But if you're committed to starting a podcast for the long term, you might want to consider them. They each have small differentiating features, things that make them different from the other. But there's no one big player in the podcast game when it comes to podcast host. Now, your host is connected to the libraries. And once you upload your data and hit publish, it sends it out to the libraries. I keep mentioning Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify because they're three of the biggest players in the States. And it's free to be listed there. People, like, their jaws are on the floor when I tell them that it costs nothing to have a podcast in the iTunes library. Why? Because they need your content so they have a reason to exist. They need it. So they need to make that access simple and as free as possible. You can be unlisted on as many platforms as you want or as few as you want. I'm on 10 platforms right now. Definitely have the big 5 covered, but there are, at least over 30 players and new ones being developed all the time trying to grab market share. So this is a really simple connection. The great thing about this connection between your host and your podcast player is that it's one and done. Once a podcast library is connected to your podcast host, it automatically publishes your content there. So you don't need to manage individual connections. I do it one time and I'm on 10 platforms every single time I publish a new show. So it's super convenient. Now at this point, our podcast baby is kicking and screaming and demanding, finely curated steak and high quality milk. I think that's what babies eat. I don't know. I'm not a father, but we need to do that. We need to feed our baby in the form of attention. So we need new listeners for our podcast audience to grow, to have a bigger impact with what we're doing. This is where we need to put on our marketing or our promotion hats. Because here's the thing, the idea of if you build it, they will come is played out. I don't know if that was ever true, but it sounds like a really good line from Field of Dreams. That's not a thing. There are people creating podcasts every single day, people who don't get the listens that they think they should because it's not enough just to exist. You need to attract people's attention. So this is by no means an exhaustive list of ways to promote your show, but one of the simplest ways, in case this isn't familiar, CTA right here means call to action. A little bit of a marketing lingo thing right here. But have an in-show call to action. When I get on the microphone before I introduce my guest, most of the time, like 80% of the time, I say, hey, y'all, have you subscribed to the show yet? Did you leave a review? Did you share this with a friend? These are these simple call to actions where if you're involved on YouTube or something like that, you're used to hearing them, but sometimes podcasters forget to do them. You need to constantly remind your audience to share your message, to subscribe, to leave reviews. Because people get busy, they're not always able to do it in the moment, and constant reminders help. Other things that we can do is make our stuff more attractive. I'm going to introduce to you an audiogram. Email. You can send out emails to people and say, hey, listen to my show. Maybe you have a business or a service right now where you have an email list of people who are kind of in your audience, in your field of influence. Social media, of course, is a great way to share your message. That's how we've grown primarily, is through Instagram. It's where I get all of my guests. It's where our audience is the biggest. And there are many, many more options. What I'm going to introduce to you now is what you can make with this tool right here called Headliner. It's a free tool to create these things called audiograms. So I'm going to change my screen and we're going to see what that looks like. So I'm going to play this quick example right here. And Latrice, I'll rely on you for thumbs up to see if the audio is coming through. I'm probably going to move my mic just in case. I'm not sure if it's doing the built-in audio. I just learned about that feature. You know, shout out to learning.
Yeah, my platform is Chubby Diaries. And what I've learned is that like there's so many plus size people that aren't living life. And I struggled with my whole life to where like, and I mean like literally genuinely struggled with it. Like I've gained 100 or lost 120 pounds and then gained it all back. And that plays with your psyche. But one thing it did not stop me from doing was like living life. The one thing with my platform is that we're not promoting obesity. But what we're doing is promoting people to live life. Because even if you're trying to get to a certain weight or your dream goal or your dream weight, like that could take years. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't live life now.
So that was an example of an audiogram. And here's the cool thing, whether you could hear it or not, you'd still be able to know exactly what was going on because of the subtitles. So an audiogram is a really cool way that's kind of podcast specific to take a little bit of audio, some minor video elements, and create something that is really enticing, that builds that promotion, that presence of your show. Now, why is this important? More hard truths for you. If I ask you to listen to my podcast, specifically this session right here with Jeff, that show is about an hour and 20 minutes long. Yes, there are awesome stories. Yes, he's an inspiring, encouraging dude. Like you feel like we're best friends when you listen to it. It's a great story. But if you don't know me, asking for an hour and 20 minutes of your life is a very big ask. What if I can take 43 seconds like I just did and give you content that is, again, either entertaining, educating, or encouraging, and now you can build your own curiosity to check out that specific session or specific episode. Is everybody following along with that? In marketing terms, we'd say that it's going to take 7 to 10 touches for somebody to become familiar with your brand. That means 7 different times they need to interact with you. So my show's an hour and 20 minutes long. I could make 7 of these, and this is the purpose that it serves. I spread this all over social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, IG stories. I don't care. It's going to be out there. And what this does is it allows me to start conversations to get people pulled into what we're doing on the platform. I love this clip. I made the clip. I'm a little bit biased, but I get a lot of good feedback that it makes people want to listen to more of the conversation. This is the sort of engaging stuff that we're looking for. I also make it very clear for people on how to find my show. I am not going to cuss about it, but I make it easy for people to find my bloody show. So right here, you can see it says Point Noir Show. That's our handle on Twitter and Instagram. You can find it. Right here, I even tell you the specific session that it comes from, so you don't have to scroll through all of our 90 shows to find it. I want to make this easy for people to discover my show. You make it too complicated, they're going to find something else to do. Voila. So I'm going to take a second to pause here, see if there are any questions coming from the chat.
So we don't have any questions, but we got a whole lot of amens and things going like that. We have some really good conversation going. That there was a lot of conversation around when you were talking about the different hosting platforms and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I did not know that Tess was in the audience tonight from our sponsor, ACAST. Hey. We were already going to talk a little bit about that after you wrapped up. Of course, we want to introduce you all to ACAST and what ACAST can do for you. ACAST is a hosting platform, and we're going to give y'all some more information after Jerry wraps up his presentation and does his Q&A. And Tess has agreed. We didn't even know Tess was going to be here, so I feel like tonight is going extremely well. For everybody who is here, you all like, y'all getting the good, like for real, this is the good. We have Jerry, and then we're going to have Tess is going to come come on camera, and she's going to give us some information about how Acast work and how Acast can help you all to monetize. You know, Jerry, you said in your presentation that we do not need to focus on monetization. And I agree with you 100%. You have to make sure that all of the stuff Jerry is giving you tonight is helping you to get to a place where you are ready for monetization. And when you get to that place, Acast is the way to go. They're going to show you how to monetize and get your message out there and get what you deserve as a Black creative. So I feel like I'm on cloud 9 right now because Jerry is killing it right now. I just need, if y'all really feel like Jerry is killing it and y'all need Jerry to know that he is killing it, I want y'all to go to the reactions down at the bottom, click that and give us some hand claps, you know, we got a hand claps, we got thumbs up, we got all of that stuff. Jerry is killing it. Jerry, I'm getting all kind of private messages from people saying, this is such great information. I'm so happy you invited me. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. Oh my God, he's amazing. This is awesome. So, and he ain't even finished. He still got more slides to go. I just need y'all to understand. So this is, yeah, we don't have any questions, but everybody, wait, we do have a question. Melissa says, can you please touch on the ownership of content with the hosting company? So one of the concerns that was raised in the chat box is that Anchor does not allow podcasters to own their content. So the rumor mill, word on the street is,
that good street.
that yes, word on these podcasting streets is that Anchor takes, once you upload it to Anchor, Anchor has ownership of your content at that point. And so they were wondering if you had any clarity around that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of legalese, and that's a question that comes up a lot of the time with Anchor. I happened to be in a room with the CEO while he was explaining it, and they've updated their terms, so you can check out to see what's current. But I'm gonna tell you, the Jerry the Third, here's how I feel about it. Why are people concerned about it? They're concerned about owning their content, usually for a monetization aspect. And what I suggest to my students is to get started. Get through your first 8 to 10 episodes, because believe it or not, most people don't even make it to their 8th episode. So before getting worked up about who owns what exactly, like, I suggest people become good podcasters first. And if you make it to your 8th session or your 10th episode and you say, okay, I need a change, this is starting to take off, then change your stuff. I download my stuff consistently from Anchor, so I still have all of my original audio, and I can move that to another platform. It's going to be kind of a pain in the butt, but it's something I'm actually considering doing now, 2 years later. But in terms of getting started and getting some experience, getting used to being a host, getting used to asking guests to be on your show, like, there's all of these steps that come first before we get to the part of, well, who owns my content? I feel like if you are launching a show and you feel like it's going to have not 10,000, that sounds like a lot. If you're going to have 2,000 downloads your first month, you probably know that in advance. It's rarely a happy accident that it's happening. So I position Anchor as the way to get started, and you don't have to end there, if that's fair.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely a fair response. Another question that we have here is your podcast primarily audio or video or both?
Great question. By definition, a podcast is audio only. It's something like about 10% of the space has video, though video does get a lot of attention. So I am audio only. There is a point in time where I'd like to incorporate a video element, but I will share one thing since we're on the topic. Treat them as two different mediums. What I'm seeing is a lot of podcasters going halfway. They're doing a halfway decent job with their video production, which is a different skill set, and they're going halfway into their listening audience. And I find that, I think in the long term, it's going to give you kind of like a flat effect. You're going to be doing a lot of work for nothing. So I consider anything that's video based to be a show. And then if you're going to strip the audio away from your video to publish as a podcast, that's now downstream content, which needs to be treated in a way that honors your listener. So just be considerate and produce for the media channel that you are, executing information through.
Absolutely. That's that's an amazing answer. Of course it is. The next question is, what are the 5 top libraries?
5 top libraries. I can give you the top 3 for sure. Apple Podcasts, which used to be Apple iTunes. Spotify is growing tremendously. Stitcher is fantastic. And then other libraries that are out there, Radio One gets a lot of love. iHeartRadio gets a lot. There may be like 7 others that fall under those top 3. Castbox is one. But when it comes to listenership, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify are your big dogs in the game. Everybody else is trying to take market share by having specific offerings. Luminary, Luminary.
Luminary.
Shout out to Luminary, though.
Shout out to Luminary out here in these podcasting streets.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question. Do
Okay.
you use the same audio clip using Headliner for different social media platforms, or do you use different audio clips? That's a great question, Stephanie. Thank you.
That's a really good question. What I do is I chop up my shows into as many clips as I can, and I put it out to see what works. So generally I'm using the same content and repurposing it across different channels. I might change the way it's presented. Squarebox looks really good on IG as a post, but it would look better as a vertical post for the story. So I might consider changing it up in that way. Just making sure you're respecting the social media platform that you're publishing on. Same thing as the video and the audio. So I'll mix it up, but generally I'm just using the same stuff, taking one piece of content and putting it on 7 different platforms, and because it's important to have your stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Leslie was just kind of amening what you were saying. She says that we are on our 3rd season, so we're disinclined to go with Anchor. And I think that makes a difference as well, right? Like, it's never too late to change platforms, but are there certain times when it may not be as advantageous for you to change a platform?
Yeah, I think if you are happy with the platform you have and it's doing everything you need, then you're good to go. I started Anchor because I wanted to get started. Here's the thing. I'm no excuses when I need to get something going. So Anchor has given me a lot of options, but now 2 years in, we're about to celebrate our 2-year anniversary. I'm considering other options. I definitely want to hear what Acast has going on, because I'm now able to perceive these small differences that I couldn't in my first 2 years. Now some things matter a little bit differently. But again, a lot of people will get started and want to get engaged in this, and they find, 2 months in, this doesn't give me joy. This doesn't make me happy. So I think Anchor still gives you that space to explore. But if you're already established, jam on with what feels right with you. Mind you, I'm a dude who quit his job and took a one-way ticket to Paris, France. So I'm out here.
No, but I definitely can concur with what you're saying. I've been with Libsyn for a while, but I started out with SoundCloud, and SoundCloud very quickly did not service my needs.
Even though they claim to be the #1 podcast hosting solution, and all I hear are testimonies like Latrice's. It's a travesty.
Yes, I think there may be the #1 intro to podcasting solution. SoundCloud is a great way to get your podcast off the ground.
Yeah.
Completely free. 3 whole episodes, and then you're on your own after that. But it is making that shift. And now, even having been with Libsyn for about the last 2 years, I am moving to a new platform, and surprise, I'm moving to Acast, and not just because they're our sponsors. I was actually moving to Acast before that. That's how I knew who Acast was.
Nice.
And so that's pretty cool. But we'll get more information about Acast in a little bit. Carlene says, I'm so grateful for all of this amazing information. Nice. Let's see. I saw another question there. Did we just answer that question? I don't think so. I'm going to ask it again just to be extra safe. It says, Jerry mentioned that he is considering moving to a different platform other than Anchor. Which platform would that be?
I'm still in the consideration phase. there's so much information and so many platforms out there. But like I said, I'm inspired by Acast because I trust Latrice. Like, this is how a lot of this stuff works. You see who's in your space and what they're doing and what it works. I want to hear about Acast. Some other ones are definitely Libsyn, Podbean, but I'm not sure. It's still under consideration. And like, it's not like I'm a LeBron James of podcasting. Like, nobody's vying for me. So one of the difficulties in the podcast world is everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a thought about everything. So I don't know at this point. I'm still trying to record a show from 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So we have a lot of questions about the platforms. So it's obvious that this is a huge pain point for a lot of our attendees. And so maybe it's worth it for us to put together a separate presentation, because I don't want you to run out of time tonight. And so maybe it's worth it for us to put together, we're going to correlate all of the questions that you all are posting, and even the ones that we haven't had an opportunity to get to yet. And we will either create new content from that and use that as a way for us to be able to continue to serve your needs. Or we're going to see if Jerry is willing to come talk to us on Instagram again. And maybe we can ask him some more questions over there. We can do like a Q&A session with you. But I want you to go ahead and get back to your presentation, because I don't want you to run out of time. I want to make sure they get everything that you came to give them tonight.
Absolutely. Y'all going to get all of these sound waves today. So I appreciate the engagement and the questions. One thing I will say is all those suggestions I made for the podcast process, you can sub them all out. I'm giving you something that's going to be simple and effective and free that works. But sometimes you get what you pay for. So if you like using something else to make your audiograms, go for it. If your cousin makes dope, like, use that. I just want you to get going. I don't want you to say it's due to lack of information that was applicable. I literally have taught 11-year-olds who've started their podcast because they were just ready to move. So I'm here for you. Let's get into equipment, because I feel like some people are like, oh my God, talk about the tech, talk about the microphones. What do I need to buy? Let's do it. So already we're focused on making a solid show, something that is reproducible. That's why we have that process, but equipment does matter. So starting as simply as possible, because we're not going to go OD with the equipment. We're going to cover some basics and leave it at that. But your cell phone is a fantastic podcasting tool. Even now with all the particular microphones and adaptations right here, you can see here's a tripod on a mic. This is called a shotgun microphone. Same thing you use on a camera if you were filming for video, but you just plug it into your phone. I've used shotgun mics. I carry these. These are called lapel mics. And you might think, oh, that's something super fancy that I've only seen on interviews on TV. No, y'all. These joints are like $15 on Amazon with shipping. I keep 2 on me at all times, and I have an adapter like this that works on my phone. So you see, it's kind of small, but there's a channel 1 and a mic 2 right here. I can plug in 2 microphones into my iPhone and record on the go. So don't sleep on your cell phone. It works really, really well, and it's a good way to get started. So I mentioned the tripod, I mentioned shotgun mics, and really phone adapters are accessible as well. I actually record with this mic straight into my phone using a USB to lightning cable adapter. $10-15, and you're good to go. If you don't have anything on your phone, your Voice Notes app is a great way to get started. You can export that audio with good recording, good quality, send it to your computer, do your editing, and publish that as a show. So your cell phone is really like your Swiss Army knife for podcasting tools. Because who knows, you might invest in some equipment and you have an opportunity to interview someone on the go and you don't have your stuff on you, pull out your phone. So let's take it up a step. Now, to me, this is kind of square one for podcasting, especially right now with COVID and shelter-in-place orders. I interview guests 98% of my sessions. I'm here in Dallas, and they are all over the world. Iran, France, all over the country, Canada, Europe. They're all over the place. So this is what this looks like, and this is going to be the foundation for all of your podcast setups. Latrice, keep me honest if I'm lying somehow, but I think I've broken it down. So you have 3 components to recording. You have something to input your voice or voices. That's a microphone. Super simple. You're going to have some sort of software that's going to hold the data. So this could be you recording directly into your computer using GarageBand or Audacity, or using a piece of virtual software like Zoom to do remote long distance podcasting. Then you're going to have some headphones or some way to hear what's going on. That's it. Those are the only 3 elements you need to record. Now, the easiest way to have an upgraded sound as a podcast host is to change your microphone. So whenever I'm teaching and whenever I have clients, I recommend them to look at USB/XLR compatible microphones. I'll tell you what that means in a second. But basically, this is how I'm talking to you right now. I have my microphone. I'm connected through USB straight into my computer. I like to pull it out just to prove, and it goes right in, and I'm using my built-in speakers. This is how I do almost all of my interviews, especially right now. I'll wear headphones, but it's a little bit weird to be leading a workshop with headphones on my head, plus it gets hot. So this is simple as it needs to be. Almost all of you are equipped to do this right now. So here's some recommendations for microphones. And over here on the left, I have, as I mentioned, these USB/XLR microphones. Now, almost everybody is pretty much familiar with USB at this point. It's what charges a lot of our devices. It's how we get flash drives into our computers. But what is XLR? XLR is the music industry standard for connecting a microphone to an audio interface or a mixer. So anytime you've seen a stand-up comedian or a singer or a musician that had a microphone with a cable coming out of it, chances are it was connected through XLR. These microphones allow you to do both, which is fantastic. So I can plug this right into my computer or my phone when I'm on the go or in my home studio. And when I go out and teach workshops, I use some more professional equipment. Now I can switch to that XLR feature. You see right here on the microphone, you know what? I'll get an example for you. I didn't plan to do this, by the way. I thought, but you know, y'all are family. So this microphone right here is the same microphone I'm talking through. It's the Samson Q2U. Right now I'm connected through USB, but if you look closely, you see these 3 prongs. That's my XLR input right there. And all I do when I'm on the road is I take my XLR cable and connect it, and I'm good to go. And it switches back to USB just by changing the cable. So it does everything you need to do. I find a lot of beginning podcasters go for USB only microphones. And here's how they cut themselves short. Because eventually you're gonna want a better sound. And a better sound usually comes with XLR based equipment. Well, now not only do you have new equipment to buy, but you have a new microphone to reinvest in. And I'm here to save you a couple of coins in advance if I can. So my suggestions would be a Samsung Q2U. That's what I'm using and speaking to you with right now. Or the ATR 2100. Audio-Technica has some good models out there, but the Samsung Q2U is like $70. $70. You can't beat it.
If I can just interject, I just want you all to know I am using an ATR 2100. This is the microphone that I use to record with as well. So just so that you can kind of hear the sound quality.
Yep.
Jerry is using the Samsung, I'm using the ATR. And it's a dual as well. So right now I'm plugged to my to my MacBook with a USB, but I also have the XLR.
Absolutely. And it gives you the ultimate flexibility, saves you some coins on upgrading. A lot of people love this Blue Yeti, not to bash anybody, but it's $130, $140 mic, and that does USB only. You could buy 2 of these and you and a friend could have fun podcasting for the same amount. It's going to sound the same. It's actually going to sound better if you bought one of these for reasons we won't talk about in this presentation. Okay, let's say you have some coins to drop. You want to go XLR only. You like the aesthetic. You like the look. You're ready to invest in this. Here are 2 fantastic options at their price point. I think the Rode Pod mic is about $100. It's one of my dream mics. That'll be my next upgrade. But here's the $10,000 question. How do I connect something that says XLR into my computer? You certainly don't have any XLR inputs. This is where we're going to introduce another piece of podcast gear that you might want to be aware of. It's called your soundboard. So don't get confused by the extra wires. We're going to break this down. Same thing. Got a place for your voice with some friends, some microphones. We still have a computer that all this data is going into to be recorded, and we have some headphones. But now in between that, we have this thing called a soundboard. What a soundboard allows you to do is connect higher quality XLR cables into your recording process, as well as manipulate things about the sound. And it's really important to be able to control your volume levels while you're recording rather than trying to manage it in your editing process, because the cleaner sound that we can going through the first time, the less work we have to do on the back end. Now you might ask, well, Jerry, my laptop has 4 USB ports on it. In which case I would ask, what sort of laptop do you have? Because that sounds quite old. Most laptops don't really have more than 2 these days. But here's the thing, things get kind of wonky once you start putting in 3 or more USB cables. Even 2 can be difficult for getting clear recording and not having any interference. So this is a step up. Now, there are two ways that I suggest people checking this out. Pretty common. One's just a simple audio interface and one's an audio mixer. You plug the microphones right here into this XLR port. You're able to manipulate the volume a little bit and you're good to go. Now, there are two words on this page that I really, really mean when I type them. One is easy, one is advanced. A USB audio interface is going to be easy. You plug it in your computer through USB, you plug the microphone right in, and you're good to go. An audio mixer is another skill set. I'm not even qualified to teach you on this, but because of the way it looks, look how good it looks. All these knobs, it looks beefy, it's gray, like it's ready to do some dirty work. It will be the bane of your existence. I promise you, you will be on YouTube for no less than an hour trying to figure out what you're doing. Meanwhile, you've been talking for an hour into your recording and nothing's getting picked up. This is a skill set. So a lot of people kind of buy these podcast all-in-one kits, and some people manage a way to make this work. Most people don't even use these at a tenth of their capacity. So keep it simple. Trust your boy Jerry III. Get you an audio interface if you want to get anything at all. Now, this is the part where you have homework. All that I've shared with you, you can get done. Now, I mentioned these platforms right here. You can interchange them. A lot of people have different free trials and things you can use, but I recommended Anchor. Record your value statement. Remember when I mentioned earlier, I help blank to do blank by blank. I help who to do what by how. Record that. Just get used to your voice. I want you to download the app, hit the record button right there on the app, and record yourself talking. Add some free music, which is one of the benefits. Add a title and description, and then just listen to your voice. One of the reasons why podcast is the avenue for leaders is because people are afraid of their own voices. Public speaking is still the #1 fear over death. So the fact that you have the courage to get on a microphone and present your thoughts and ideas and conversations publicly is quite admirable. We still regard podcasters the same way we do TV hosts or news anchors. It's really a big deal. And most people hate hearing their own voice. You ever listen to your own voicemail on your phone if you still record it and be like, you know what, just turn that off. So by getting used to your voice, you'll start to fall in love with different aspects of it. It's just going to give you more motivation. If you're feeling really frisky, hit publish. Here's the thing with all of this. You can just delete it. You can just unpublish it. But I want you to get through the process, through the habits of this new thing called podcasting. It's going to serve you in amazing ways if you really take it to task. So for the sake of time, I do want to get into the launch formula right away, but this is going to be pretty short. So we've got some equipment, we've got our process, we've got our value statement. We know how we want to make an impact, but how can we make the biggest launch of our show possible? Had I known this when I launched my show, I would have done it completely differently. I opened my show up to 11 downloads the first week. 4 of them were me. The week after that, it was 5, and I'm pretty sure I was 2 of them. So things happen. This is a journey, but let's get you started with as much fuel as possible. So why do we want a launch strategy? I don't know if you can tell by now, but I think through a lot of this stuff. I really don't believe in happy accidents when it comes to creating anything or success. So it's good to have a plan and have a little bit of a roadmap. That's why you're all here right now. But your first weeks of launching a show are critical if you want to show up in iTunes for new and noteworthy. You have like a 6 to 8 week range to show up in new and noteworthy. And what that does is it places your podcast at the top of the browser so that people who are just scrolling through will be like, hey, let's check out this new show. iTunes says it's good. That's cool if you're able to do it. It establishes early momentum, which creates this thing called a positive feedback loop. There's going to be a lot of hurdles and challenges you will incur with your podcast, but wouldn't it be so much more encouraging if you had people listening to your show instead of figuring like you had to solve that problem first? So if we can get you to a nice, healthy launch where you can see the growth, it's going to encourage you to keep podcasting. So I'm trying to engineer you for success. And as I mentioned, failing to plan is planning to fail. This stuff counts. People and platforms, no matter who they are or how you perceive them, no one from Gimlet or NPR is launching a podcast by accident. They are not building it and hoping you find out about it. No, they are putting money and effort and intention into the strategy. So let's keep it super simple. 4 steps. 1, I want you to consider your launch an event. You do not have to wait until your podcast is live and running for you to talk about your show. I encourage my clients to talk about their stages of progress as they build their show. As we go through my program and they come up with their mission statement and come up with their host lineup, like share that information. Make that day that you launch your show a really big deal. It'll engage people with this new endeavor that you're doing, because not everybody sees what's going on social media. Not everybody can read your mind. So you need to tell people, hey, I'm building towards this goal. Let me show you what I'm experiencing. Hey, do y'all like the sound of this mic, or do you like the sound of the mic that Latrice has? I'm going to do an A/B test. I did that with my show, and people are like, I don't know why Jerry's talking about microphones, but I'm sure as heck going to vote. So you want to get people's attention to build that momentum and interest and investment into you launching. Second part of your launch formula is your episode 0. This is something you can look up. It's not an original concept for me, but an episode 0 is really technically your first podcast publication. And what it does is it's basically a short form podcast, could be 5-10 minutes, where you introduce yourself to your future audience. Now, this is important because if you're being a great host, you're not going to spend a ton of time talking about you. So in your initial stages, to have this episode 0, it kind of sets the base for, again, who you are, what you do, and why. And it builds familiarity and trust with you as a host. But here's the real secret that it does, is it goes through all of your tech check for you. Wouldn't it be a shame if you launched your podcast on, I don't know, July 20th, and you realized once you hit publish that it's not showing up in iTunes correctly, or not showing up in Spotify or Stitcher? Your episode 0 is kind of like your pre-launch event. It's not your launch date. It's just something to get through all this technical stuff and have a little bit of content for people to get to know you when they encounter your platform. Step 3, because I'm running short on time, is the launch bundle. Y'all have heard of Netflix binging. I'm doing it right now with Hulu. I'm watching all of the seasons of Lost. It's really addictive. You can engineer this same sort of reaction with your show, but you're not going to do it by just launching one show on your launch date. I recommend to launch 3 to 5 shows, not including your episode 0. If you go back into my catalog, you will see my episode 0, and you'll see the 4-pack that I started with. I started with a 4-pack, 4 individual episodes. Now, how does this help you? Well, let's say that you had 100 people listening to your show in your launch. You did what I said, you made it a launch event, and you just released 1 episode. Well, assuming they all listen, you will get 100 downloads. But what if you had 3 more shows? You're actually going to add a multiplier onto the number of downloads possible in that first launch date by releasing multiple shows. Because iTunes doesn't care how many episodes you have out. They just care that you're a new platform and you got this many number of downloads in this short period of time. It's cool for the platforms, but it also allows people to get hooked on your content, allows people to binge on you. And that is something that we as, general lay folk haven't had the ability to do. So why not engineer it with your podcast? Because guess what? If you're creating quality content or even learning along your way, people like that first episode, they'll give you a shout for your second episode. Right there, you might have 200 downloads, whereas before you're going to have 100. So it's going to help build that reinforcement, that positive feedback loop. And then last but not least, I call this adding fan fuel. I didn't mention this earlier, but I come from somewhat of a digital marketing background, but we all have connections in places that sometimes we don't account for. Well, let's say you're building a lawn care business for some reason and you want to start a podcast about your lawn care business. Well, you can definitely email your previous customers and say, hey, I have a show. I'd love to get your opinion on it. Let's say you have a fan base on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can reach out to these people individually and bring them all and consolidate them in your podcast platform. Sometimes we forget how much influence or how much of an audience we have. So even when I started from 0, I didn't really start from 0. I still had my personal pages and I brought people in to check out my show, and that's how I built my initial momentum. But some of you might be entrepreneurs, business owners, have professional connections. This is a great way to not only engage people with this new product or project that you're doing, but also you can entice them to give you some reviews if you know them on a personal connection. Let's say you're doing something for your industry. Invite people to check out the first few couple sessions and offer them a little gift card if they leave a review once you go live. You need to make sure you're maximizing your current reach as it exists before you become a podcaster, so to say, because you have a lot there for you. And a lot of people are willing to root for you if you let them know and engage them. So I got some more homework. Your turn. Number 1, I could have started the whole presentation with this for those of you who don't have podcasts. Set your launch date. It's the very first thing I do with each and every one of my clients. I don't care about your show topic. I don't care about your equipment. I don't care about your feelings, about your voice. I want you to set your launch date. This is going to provide almost magnetic momentum towards you getting it done. How often have you said, I want to do this thing or try this thing, but you never wrote it down on a calendar? You never held yourself accountable. Literally put your launch date in your phone. And this is what I use to reference every time I get on a call with one of my coaching clients. It's going to build momentum. It's going to almost train your mind to imagine that this is already done. So set your launch date. Even if you're right now getting off this conference call, this workshop, 6-8 weeks is plenty of time to get a show going. You could definitely do it faster, but give yourself some time and put it down on paper. Next thing I want you to do is plan your first bundle, those 3 to 5 shows, and just write down your guests. Just even if you just wrote down your names, it's going to go so far, again, to build that courage, build that stamina, and build that momentum. This is a momentum game, y'all. Then last but not least, list out your audience. If you have some former contacts from a job that you're on a good basis with, write them down. If you do some community service with your church or with organizations, write them down. And if you have access to their information via email or whatever, see if you can engage them and kind of get this pre-audience built up. Even if it's only 10 to 20 people, well, damn, it's really nice to have 10 downloads your first day. I did 11 my first week, y'all. So I'm trying to give you ways to set yourself up for success, not only for the short time of launching your show, but also in the long term, because I believe there's a lot of good that's going to come from all of the shows and all the impact you collectively will have. So that is my time, y'all. I appreciate your patience. Like, seriously, thank you for your attention, engagement. Questions have been fantastic. Thank you, Acast and Afros and Audio. I will hand it over to Latrice now.
Listen, I just need for the church to say amen. I need y'all to like pop a little amen up in the comments box, because Jerry just blessed our whole world, y'all. Jerry done blessed our whole world. I was not ready. I thought I was ready, but I was ill prepared. Okay, let me make sure you understand how Jerry just came up in here and snatched every one of the wigs that was around. I don't even wear wigs. I got locks. I don't even wear wigs. But he done snatched all my wig and everything off. Jerry, you are so amazing, and we appreciate you so much for sharing your knowledge and making sure that we have the information that we need to come out of the gate as competitive. Because we talked about this during our IG Live. If y'all not following us on Instagram, y'all make sure you do that. It's at Afros and Audio, and you can follow Jerry at Jerry the third. Underscore the third. I knew it was something like that. The words the third. Okay. We talked about this, how important it is for Black podcasters and Black creatives to come together in support of one another, for the betterment of each other, because at the end of the day, when we are magnifying Black voices, we are magnifying Black culture and Black people, and we are healing our people in a way that we don't even understand. Y'all know I'm a therapist now. I'm a therapist. So I look at everything from a collective kind of therapeutic standpoint, and this is a huge thing that you're doing for us, because you're giving us somewhat of an even playing field. A lot of the information that Jerry shared tonight is information that we do not get access to, and we being the Black podcasting community, it is not readily available for us. This is information that other podcasters and other people, like how you was talking about the batch launching, like the launch bundle. I was like, I'm in several Facebook groups for podcasters. I'm in groups for all female podcasters. I'm in groups for all Black female podcasters. And I keep seeing people say, oh, I recorded 5 episodes. I've already done 10 episodes, my first podcast, and it's going to launch on such and such day. And I be saying to myself, why they're recording so many episodes like that? I don't understand why they're doing that. That's why they're batching the episodes, and they're putting it out there to give themselves a better shot at being seen and being heard and reaching their audience, because the more downloads you get in the very beginning, the more you launch to, the more I'm sorry, Jerry. I don't know why. There you go. The more downloads you launch to, the more likely the platform is to pick up your show and say, oh, something's going on over there. Let me tell the people about it. And then that's how you get spotlighted on Apple Podcasts. That's how you get spotlighted on Google Podcasts. That's how you get spotlighted on Spotify, because Spotify and all of those, they have built-in algorithms that say, oh, it looks like this is trending. Let's throw that out there and see if we can make it go higher. Because at the end of the day, they just want the information. So it's, thank you so much, Jerry. There's lots of questions, y'all. This is his email, all of his information. Y'all make sure that you reach out to Jerry directly, and make it happen. Before we get off tonight, I told y'all I wanted to make sure that we talked about our sponsor tonight. Our sponsor is Acast, and you all were asking all kinds of questions. We have Tess in the chat box. Tess is representative from Acast, and I kind of put her on the spot, so I'm gonna ease back off of that a little bit. I ain't gonna make you come out, because sometimes you can't just pull the people on camera. You got to be prepared to come on camera, and so Tess was not prepared to be on camera tonight, but she is more than willing to answer any questions that you all might have. I'm gonna just give y'all some information about Acast, and again, some homework, Jerry. Hallelujah. You made my therapist's heart melt when you gave homework, because that's what I do. I give homework, okay? Because you got to follow up with that thing. And so I'm going to give you all some information about Acast, and then I'm going to give you some information on how you can find out additional information on Acast. So Acast was founded in 2014, and it is a fully integrated and fast-growing podcast marketplace. And they have offices everywhere, from New York to Paris to Stockholm to Sydney, Australia. They are a global entity. I want to say that again. They don't just have podcasters in Germany and Stockholm and in Australia. They have offices there, which means that they are such a huge organization that they need to have offices in other countries, okay? And Acast reached out to Afros in Audio because they saw what we were doing in the Black community. They saw what our mission was. They understood the importance of supporting Black voices, okay? And so they reached out to us. They reached out to us and they said, hey, I see y'all said y'all trying to get some things together over there. How can we help? Because we want to amplify Black voices. We have an initiative that we're trying to do where we would like to be able to support the Black podcasting community. And I need y'all to understand that they specifically said they wanted to support the Black podcasting community. So not just podcasters of color, but specifically the Black podcasting community, which means that they see the value in what we have to offer. And their primary focus is on monetization of your art. And we at Afros in Audio are a huge believer in Black creatives and Black podcasters getting paid for what they do. And so Acast creates opportunities for you to be able to create your own monetization instead of waiting for some other outside entity to decide that you are worthy. Okay? Acast gives you an opportunity to put this in your own hands. And so, like I said, before all of this, before Acast, before I started working with Afros in Audio, I was already looking into changing podcasting platforms for my new season for my show, which is Unicorns Talk Podcast. A little shameless plug real quick. And Acast was at the top of my list. Acast was at the top of my list. So when I started working with Afros in Audio and Talib said, hey, we got, Acast is reached out to us about being a sponsor. I was like, oh yeah, I know them. I know them. Yeah, let's try to see what we could do with that, because I already know what ACAST brings to the table. And so you have lots of podcasting platforms that you can choose from. Like I said, I started on SoundCloud. I have been very happily with Libsyn for the last 2 years, but I'm at a different place now in my podcasting journey, where before I wasn't putting any focus on monetization. Now I'm realizing that I do deserve to get paid for putting my art out there. I put a lot of work into my show. I do everything. I produce it, I record it, I edit it, I do all of everything Jerry showed y'all tonight. I do all of that for my show, and I do it by myself. And it is a labor of love, and I deserve to be compensated for my art. And so ACAST, creates an opportunity for us to be able to do that. You can go to acast.com and you can find out more information. I just posted that website in the chat box. So you can go ahead and copy and paste that and make sure that you check ACAST out after we do what we got to do. ACAST has 3 different tier options, which begins with a starter option, which is completely free. Okay. And even their starter option, because I saw somebody ask about websites and all of that. We're going to do it. That's a different talk for a different day. That's a whole talk in and of itself. Okay. And I promise you, stick with us. We're going to get you together. Yes. We're going to get you everything you need. But ACAST included in their free starter package comes a basic website for your podcast. So you won't have to start taking out this and taking out that. You literally go buy yourself a domain, you connect that domain, you do what you got to do, and you get it up and running. And that's on their free tier. Now, if they're giving you websites on the free tier.
Okay, you told me something, because now you've piqued my interest. You had my curiosity.
I saw the light bulb go off, Jerry. I saw the light bulb.
Went like here.
Yes, I saw it. So, and even their most popular tier is less than $20 a month, less than $15 a month, and we're going to be real about it. Okay. So it's worth it to at least put them on your short list. Take a look at what they have to offer. We believe in autonomy here. And so while we appreciate that ACAST is our sponsor, we definitely want you to know that you have choices, that you have options. And at the end of the day, you're going to find or select the hosting platform that works best for where you are and for what it is that you want to do. But we want to make sure that you understand that the quality that you're looking for and the quality that meets the expectation of the grandiosity of your dreams. You like how I did that? I like that string of words. That was a nice string of words, because I got big, huge, ignorant dreams. I don't know about y'all, but I see my thing doing big things, And so we want y'all to understand that you can do that on a budget. You can make that happen. You can make that fit into whatever budget you have. And then as your show grows, as you grow, then you grow your tech, then you grow your platform, and then you grow, like Jerry said, start where you need to start. All that matters is that you start. So we want to give you the information that you need to start. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Yes. So we want to thank you all once again. I know that we did not get to all of the questions, but I am writing, like, we're not leaving this room until we get every one of those questions written down. I promise y'all. And we are going to make sure that these questions get answered. Either they are going to be answered on our Instagram page, or they're going to be answered by way of us giving you a whole nother presentation. This is the first of an entire series. This is a thing. This is a thing. And this thing is going to happen over and over and over and over. And we're just going to talk about this topic and that topic and the next topic and the third topic. Okay. So go ahead and make up in your mind that this is the thing that you're doing, that you're rocking with Afros and Audio, that you're going to get this podcast up off the ground, and you're going to figure out a way to get paid for your art, because that's what we trying to do. I'm just saying, that's what we trying to help you do. Like that's the whole point. That's the whole purpose. That's what it is. We making it happen. Okay. So thank y'all so much. And I just want to one more time just say how awesome and amazing you are, Jerry, and how just phenomenal you really are. I don't know. I feel like I don't even have really another word to describe what you are, but you are just amazing. That's the word. You are amazing. So as one of the, I moved away from it real quick, so I can't see who said it. I feel like it was Stephanie, because Stephanie, I feel like I know you, girl. I feel like we got real close during this little, communicating in the chat and stuff, because Stephanie was in here. Stephanie came to play no games. Stephanie was getting her questions answered, and she wasn't leaving here until she did. But in the words of Stephanie, to quote a great Negro spiritual, that boy good. Yes, that boy is good. Hallelujah.
Appreciate it, y'all.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jerry, for being awesome and for being who you are. And y'all make sure you email Jerry. I don't think he has any problems with you shooting him an email. If you have a question, some of you, I told you that you need to reach out to him directly and see how he can be of assistance. All right. All right. Absolutely. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure that you sign up for the next Afros and Audio virtual podcast kickback. Let me find that date for y'all. What's the date, Talib? I know you're in the I know you're out there lurking. The date for the next one, I just had it. What did I do?
July 15th.
July 15th. There we go. Wait, and whatever. It's July 15th, and we are doing a tech talk, a novice tech talk. Okay, so all of the audio equipment and everything that Jerry kind of introduced us to, we gonna dig deep into that thing. Okay, so y'all make sure that you get all your questions. That's going to be a panel discussion. We have some of the top tech people in the industry, and they are going to come and they are going to talk to us about how to get your tech together. And this is the novice level. See, we thought about everything. We even giving y'all tiers of this information. This is the intro to tech talk. All right. So don't worry about it's going to be over your head or nothing like that. This is for you. If you don't know nothing about the tech, if you're not quite sure, if you think you might want to this, that, and the other, this is for you. So make sure you head on over to Afros and Audio and register. You will have to register for every individual event. Okay. So just because you register for this one, don't mean you register for the next one. And you want to make sure that you're in the number. All right. So make sure you go to afrosandaudio.com and register for the next month's event. It's going to be on July 15th. And follow us at Afros and Audio on Instagram so that you can make sure you stay up to date on all of the information. We're going to be doing weekly live streams, which is going to have all kinds of little nuggets in there as well. This is the place that you need to be. Make sure that you let all of your people know. Come on, and we rocking with Afros and Audio. All right. All right. Oh, and everything is free. Just want to say that too. All right. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Look, can we get a slow clap? Is that a slow clap, girl? Yes. Yes, Melissa. Melissa said y'all get a slow clap, girl. Hallelujah. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We love y'all and we appreciate y'all. And we're going to see y'all next month. Same time, same place. We're going to be here. All right. Bye, y'all.